The basement of secrets. When I was 12, I'd always been curious and was constantly seeking adventure and exploring every nook and cranny of our neighborhood. But there was one place I'd always been told to stay away from, the creepy old house at the end of the street. It belonged to Mr. Abernathy, the reclusive old man everyone whispered about. They said he had a dark secret that no one dared to uncover. They said that those who entered his house never came out. One sunny afternoon, with a sense of excitement mixed with fear, I decided to break the rule. I couldn't resist the temptation any longer. The stories about Mr. Abernathy's house had haunted my dreams for weeks, and I needed to know the truth. I found myself standing in front of the ominous house, heart pounding in my chest, before summoning the courage to step onto the creaky porch. The front door was slightly ajar, inviting me in. Pushing it open with trepidation, I entered a dimly lit hallway that smelled of dust and decay. The air was heavy, and the house seemed to breathe around me. Cobwebs hung like veils from the ceiling, making my skin crawl. I could hear faint murmurs, as if the walls themselves were whispering warnings. As I ventured deeper into the house, I found myself in front of a locked door. The faded brass nameplate read, Abernathy's Laboratory. My heart raced, and a mix of fear and fascination fueled my desire to find out what was hidden inside. With trembling hands, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a set of old skeleton keys I had found in the attic at home. I hoped one of them would fit, and to my surprise, the third key turned the lock with a satisfying click. The door creaked open, and I stepped into a room filled with chemistry equipment and jars filled with strange specimens. My eyes widened in awe and terror. The room was like a mad scientist's lair. Beakers and test tubes lined the shelves, bubbling and steaming with mysterious concoctions. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, and the room was lit with an eerie green glow. But what drew my attention the most were the jars filled with unusual creatures, bizarre insects, grotesque plants, and things I couldn't even begin to comprehend. My stomach churned with unease, but my curiosity pushed me forward. I reached out to touch one of the jars, and as soon as my fingers grazed the glass, a shiver ran down my spine. The contents inside shifted and squirmed as if they were alive. A sudden voice behind me startled me. "You shouldn't be here, young man," Mr. Abernathy said with a cold, raspy tone. I turned around to see the old man standing in the doorway, his eyes fixed on me. He wore a tattered lab coat, and his long, unkempt hair added to the haunting aura around him. "I'm sorry, sir," I stammered, trying to find an excuse for my intrusion. "I was just curious." Mr. Abernathy's lips curled into a sinister smile. "Curiosity killed the cat, they say. But perhaps it's time someone knows my secret." I could feel the weight of his words as if they were pressing down on my chest. I was trapped, unable to move as he stepped closer. "You see, young Timmy, I have been searching for the elixir of eternal life, a potion that would grant me immortality." My mind raced with fear and disbelief. I had stumbled upon something beyond my wildest imagination. "Did you find it, Mr. Abernathy?" I managed to ask. The old man's eyes gleamed with madness. "Indeed, I did. But every attempt to perfect the elixir had disastrous consequences. The creatures you see in those jars are the results of my failed experiments, monstrous aberrations created in my desperate pursuit of eternal life." As he spoke, I noticed the jars trembling, and a haunting realization struck me. They were not just specimens. They were alive, and they were hungry. "You shouldn't have come here, Timmy," Mr. Abernathy said, his tone chillingly calm. "Now you know my secret, and I can't allow you to leave." Panic surged through my veins as I turned to run, but the door slammed shut before I could escape. I was trapped with the mad scientist and his grotesque creations. I could see hunger in the eyes of the specimens as they rattled their jars, desperate to break free and feast on fresh flesh. Mr. Abernathy advanced toward me, his step slow and deliberate. "You will be my final experiment," he said, raising a syringe filled with a glowing green liquid. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. "Please, Mr. Abernathy, let me go. I won't tell anyone about this place, I promise." But my pleas fell on deaf ears. He lunged at me with surprising speed, and I barely managed to dodge the needle. In the struggle that followed, a shelf of chemicals crashed to the ground, causing an explosion of flames that engulfed the room. Blinded by smoke and choking on fumes, I stumbled backward, crashing into a table. The jars fell, and the grotesque creatures spilled out onto the floor, scuttling and crawling in all directions. The room was chaos, and I seized the opportunity to make my escape. I rushed through the smoke-filled hallway, trying to find my way out of the burning house, but the flames spread rapidly, cutting off my path. The house seemed to be alive, feeding on my fear, trapping me within its fiery walls. With every ounce of strength, I pushed through a door and found myself in a hidden passage. The air was fresher, and the sound of the roaring fire grew fainter behind me. The passage led to a secret exit in the backyard. I stumbled out into the open, my clothes singed, and my heart pounding with terror. The neighborhood was alerted to the blaze, and soon firefighters arrived to battle the inferno. I was questioned about what happened, but I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone the truth. No one would believe me anyway. As the fire consumed Mr. Abernathy's house, the horror within its walls was buried forever. In the days that followed, the neighborhood tried to move on, but a sense of unease lingered. I never spoke of what happened, and the secret I carried weighed heavily on my young shoulders. I couldn't forget the horrifying sights in the laboratory, nor the man who sought immortality at any cost. Years have passed since that fateful day, but the memories still haunt me in the quiet hours of the night. I wonder if anyone else will stumble upon Mr. Abernathy's house and unleash the horrors he created. The legend of the old man and his dark secrets remain, whispered among the children of the neighborhood. And though I have moved far away from that place, I can't help but wonder if one day someone else will dare to venture into the basement of secrets and face the nightmares lurking within. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel for more stories. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me create more great content for you. Until next time.